What's up, guys? Today we're gonna do another video on that Forever truck, and this may look like a brand new pickup. However, this is a used 2025 GMC Sierra 2500 that I found here at Garff Chevrolet in American Fork. This truck is available for sale. Now in this video I'm going to show you guys the original sticker and what it costs today used. Be sure to text Brady and Ryan if you would like to purchase it. Let's go ahead and jump into the video. I'm on Garff's website, and you guys will see they have this 25 HD AT4. Has 11,443 miles on the odometer right now. I'm going to drive it a little bit today, and they have it priced at $74,681 with document fee. As far as the Carfax goes, this is a Canadian spec truck. No accidents were reported. And it shows 2 previous owners, but I think when it got switched over to the United States from Canada, it might be showing as 2 owners, but it's only had 1 owner based off of what I'm seeing here. Unless someone never registered the truck when they transferred it to the United States. That's very possible too. But if you're looking at a brand new 2026 AT4, they have about $5 grand off is what they're discounting these right now. And there's not really a lot of rebates on these trucks. These trucks do a pretty darn good job, you know, holding their value, and GM doesn't really have to incentivize the AT4 trim because it's probably the most popular one. But you guys see here, there's a few dealerships discounting, some are just showing MSRP, although if you were to go to their website, they probably have it discounted about the same as you just saw. This truck does not have any modifications done to it, so it's bone stock. Now you guys know I love Banks products, and if I were buying this truck, I probably would consider doing the intake, boost tubes, turbo inlet, just to get started. Also, I would do the relocate for these manifold absolute pressure sensors, simply because they get dirty really fast. Take them out of the stream because of the EGR system is just a good idea. Now, this truck basically being a year old, there's really no damage on it, and I would say the paint is still perfect. They did clean up real quickly for me before I pulled it, so you guys can see the paint does shine really good. I don't see any imperfections on it, and you probably shouldn't with a year-old truck, but it definitely does have some wear, like on the hitch here. See a little bit of rust on it, but that's pretty typical, especially if they towed with it. And I heard someone say in the comment section, if a truck has a lot of miles on it, that's not a good thing, and that is completely not true. I actually would prefer a truck to have at least 10 to 15,000 miles a year on it, simply because it shows that they are actually using the truck, and old diesel wasn't sitting inside the, you know, fuel tank, things like that. Now for 26, they did take away this option, so for 25 these still had that handle. I think you can add it back on for like 65 bucks. But yeah, overall this truck is in pretty good condition. You guys see down below here, a little bit of rust. Nothing wrong with spending a few hours on your weekend and, you know, sanding it all down and getting it back up to that brand new look. Let's see how that wax coat is holding up here. Yeah, this is why I take time and I really keep my frame nice and clean, simply because of the rust that builds up. Now this is just surface rust, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, as I said, the Banks products I would get 100% cold air intake, because that definitely does improve the performance. And remember, they did add a sensor to the CCV for these trucks too, for 25 plus. Now, you guys kind of heard the engine earlier. Let's go ahead and take it on the road and see how it performs. By the way, the interior, brand new. There's no rips and tears on the leather. Looks brand spanking new, as it should for 11,000 miles. I love these Goodyear Wrangler Trail Runner ATs. These are some of the best tires. There's virtually no road noise from the tires. Let me turn down the AC just a little bit. Yeah, these tires are great. Like, I've had, what, 3 trucks now with these tires. Absolutely amazing. I had a 23, and then I had a 25 or 24 Chevy Silverado with these tires. I've only had 2 trucks, and I probably collectively put about 30,000 miles on these tires. So overall, I mean, they're very quiet. Now, if you are someone looking to potentially build a bulletproof truck, right, forever truck, you're like, I want to save some money, buy a used pickup, I probably would wait 6 months, right, just to make sure no weird stuff pops up on this thing. And if you start doing modifications to it, especially like weight loss program, you could potentially get a warranty decline depending on what the issues are. So I would probably wait. I would definitely do an oil analysis to start off with. And something that a lot of people forget to do when they buy used trucks, I always ask my friends when they're looking at trucks, if you get serious about buying a truck, especially if it has over 30,000 miles on it, or even if it has around 50,000 miles, the first thing I would do is have them hook up a scan tool and check the state of the DPF. Now, Ford and Ram trucks do show you the percentage of the DPF, but GM trucks do not. So I highly recommend that you pull that data on this truck, because you want to make sure that you're not going to have any emissions issues. Now, you do have a 5-year 50,000 mile warranty for the emissions, but still, it does make sense to just check it. Now, wide open throttle, these trucks are really good. Like the power delivery, I think the Duramax diesel is one of my favorite. Now, granted, Ford does have more power with the high output, but this truck has held its own against high outputs out there in the past, especially with some of my testing. I've even noted that these actually outrun it to 60 simply because of the torque management that the Fords and the Ram trucks typically have over the GMs. But yeah, has an automatic locker out back. Man, 10-speed, shifts pretty strong. That would probably be one of the things I would consider doing. And if you're not looking to do weight loss program, I think doing the Banks catalog will keep you warranty safe 100%. Just check with your dealership to make sure they're not going to try to play games with you if you have any issues with the truck. They don't try to link it to your Banks upgrades. But for the most part, most dealerships I talk to have a good opinion about Banks products, so you should be fine doing some of the Banks upgrades that I mentioned earlier. Now, if you do the Derringer, I would definitely put in that they have like a plug that you're supposed to put in if you take it in for service. So I would definitely be mindful of that. But apart from that, everything else you do should not have any issues with your warranty. I forgot to show it to you guys, but you see that 0 right there? That is your instant or average MPG. Whenever you're test driving a used truck, I would always recommend tell your salesperson ahead of time, hey, I want to drive the truck for 30 minutes on the highway. And what I would do is I would monitor that number. If it goes to 99, that means the truck is not doing a regen. However, if that number, if you're going 50, 60 miles an hour and it will not go to 99, but if it goes to like to 50 or to like 30, that's how you know the truck is doing a regen. And if you do notice a regen on a short drive, like a 30-minute drive, I would probably have the dealership go ahead and then do a force regen before you take delivery of it. And they could do that on a scan tool. And then have them change the oil, and then you should be good, because some guys don't really want to do weight loss program or deleting, for example, right? They don't want to do those types of upgrades. So they want to keep their truck emission compliant, do the Banks upgrades like the Derringer, all that stuff, and just keep the emissions on there. That way they don't have to worry about registration and things like that. So all in all, I think this is a good truck. I'm looking at even some of the fuel economy that they've gotten. You can definitely tell they were getting this truck on the highway. So yeah, all in all, this is definitely a good pickup truck to consider. And let's talk about weight loss program. If you are thinking about doing weight loss program, I will be honest with you guys, GM trucks are probably the hardest because there's so much more you have to do. For example, the EGR system is pretty much buried, so you have to remove, they call it the Y bridge, but it's basically the intake manifold. You have to remove that. You have to remove the AC compressor, the alternator, and then you have to pull the AC compressor back over here. Of course, your intake system has to come out. Everything pretty much has to come out just to get that EGR system out. And so you're looking at about 7-8 hours potentially. If you're doing it for the first time, I would say 7 to 8 hours just for the top here. Now remember, when you get down to the exhaust side of things, you have to plug a few things, and while you're pulling out the exhaust, you have the DLC, you have the SCR, and then the DPF. To get all that out, some people will pull the turbo, but my buddy and I, when we were just checking to see how hard this was, you don't have to remove the turbo. What you would do is you would lift up the cab on the truck, and I think there's like 1 bolt, 2 bolt, and maybe a third one somewhere here. Lift the cab up, that way you can remove the DLC, and then you can remove part of the emissions equipment down below, because there's not enough room to slide it out basically. So there's definitely a lot of work that has to go into doing a Duramax diesel. Now the Fords are probably not that much better, but the Cummins is obviously the best of the best, and that's why I haven't done one on a Ram yet, because I would say I could probably do a Cummins by myself if I had the right tools. But all in all, it is going to cost you a lot more for 24 plus GM Duramax trucks too. I'm going to show it to you online really quickly, simply because you have to remove the ECM. So it is tucked up in here, the ECM. The TCM can now be tuned on these trucks too, which is really easy to get to. It's just right down here. That's for the transmission tuning. So if you would like to really bulletproof your truck, the first step obviously is getting rid of the emissions equipment. So I've had my tune on my truck now for 12,000 miles. I went cross country towing 10,000 plus pounds, no issues whatsoever with my truck. So I highly recommend Diesel Art Corp. I do have a promo code down below for banks and for Diesel Art Corp if you like to purchase anything, and I will have a website up too for a oil bypass that I'll be adding into these videos. Now, last thing I'll mention is this. There's a lot of changes coming for 2027 plus. I think AI is going to be more incorporated inside of these vehicles. I've heard things like your car can deem you unfit for driving. I'm okay with that if someone is drunk, but just deem me unfit for driving for what? I don't know about that. Obviously, even GM has been talking about getting rid of Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and going with a subscription base. Ford is talking about more subscription based things too, and technologies. So I think this is the perfect time to buy something if you have the means. Obviously, if you don't have the means, then it is what it is. But I would keep what I have right now, and I would just see what's going to happen in the future. Bulletproof where you can, or just keep it maintained. You don't have to necessarily do anything I've said in this video. I like the idea of some of the upgrades I've mentioned because it does give you more performance, and it helps your truck not to have to work as hard. But yeah, I highly recommend, if you have the means, or if you already have a truck, I would keep what I have and just wait and see what happens in the future. I know that Ford, Ram, and GM are gonna all get redesigns, and the trucks are probably gonna be a lot more powerful, more horsepower and torque, bigger displacement potentially, which means it's gonna be exciting, right? Excitement. But it's at the expense of your liberties, and that's why I'm thinking right now this is the perfect time to just buy something, bulletproof it, and just be happy. So hope this video was helpful. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Make sure bell notifications are on. See you guys soon.